All right, today we're going to go deep, literally right under the streets of our cities. We're going to uncover a hidden system that holds way more power than you can possibly imagine. Now, this is a story about water, for sure, but it's also a story about community, about conflict, and about who really gets to build our world. And it all kicks off with this incredible showdown in the heart of Bolivia.
I mean, think about that for a second. Why would an entire city, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people, go to war over a water bill? It sounds pretty extreme, right? But back in the year 2000, that is exactly what went down in Cochabamba, Bolivia. The city just erupted in what the world now calls the water war. It was a massive conflict that pitted regular citizens against their own government and a huge international corporation. So what could possibly make something as basic as water so explosive?
And this whole thing just exploded. I mean, the timeline was unbelievably fast. In January, this new private water contract kicks in, and water bills go through the roof. By April, the protests have escalated into a full-blown crisis. We're talking the city is paralyzed, a state of emergency is declared, and after violent clashes, the government is actually forced to back down and tear up the contract. So right away, you know this was about way more than just high prices. The people were fighting for something much, much deeper.
Okay, so to really get what happened in the water war, we've got to pull back the curtain on the official story. The real fight wasn't just about some new contract or a price hike. No, it was about protecting this enormous, independent water system that had been there for years. A system that, it seems, the government and the foreign company barely even knew existed. And at the very heart of this hidden system, you find these groups called OPEs. That's OLPE, which stands for Operadores Locales de Pequeña Escala. Just think of them as small-scale, totally independent, community-run water co-ops. They basically pop up out of pure necessity in neighborhoods where the official city water just doesn't show up. They're this fascinating third way. It's not the state, it's not some big corporation, it's the community itself stepping up and taking control. And I mean, the difference between these two models is just night and day. On one hand, you've got your traditional centralized system. It's top-down, run by the state or a corporation, often pretty rigid, and its coverage can be, well, spotty. But then you have the OLPs. They are built from the bottom up. They're hyper-local, totally adaptive, and completely owned and run by the people they serve. They are literally filling in the gaps the big systems leave behind.
So you might be thinking, okay, how big of a deal are these informal systems really? Well, get ready for this number because it is staggering. In the Cochabamba region, an estimated 70% of all water coverage comes from these OLPs and other individual solutions. Just let that sink in for a second. 70%. This isn't some tiny little gap filler. This is the main event. The official system was actually the minority provider. And that new law, it threatened to basically take over all these community systems without paying them a dime. That is why people went to war. So this leads us to this really fascinating, almost kind of mind-bending idea from the source material. These water networks, they do more than just move water around. They literally redraw the map of the city. They create what the researchers call a fragmented city. And it's a concept that really forces you to rethink what a city even is.
All right, let's look at the nearby city of Quechacalo as an example. The official government map, it shows these neat, orderly districts with clean lines. But the real map, the one that actually dictates how life works on the ground, it's this messy, overlapping patchwork of territories. And you know what defines the borders on that real map? It's not a government decree. It's the physical reach of a community's water pipe. The whole logic of the city is flipped on its head. It's built from the ground up. And here's a quote from the research that just nails it. The city can no longer be conceived as a single system, but must be understood today as the addition of a set of small systems, fragmented by different types of networks. In other words, it's not one big unified city. It's more like an archipelago of mini-cities all stitched together, each with its own rules and its own infrastructure.
Okay, so this is where the story gets really, really interesting. Because if you think this is just about pipes and water pressure, you are missing the biggest part of the picture. For these OLPAs, controlling the water, that's just step one. The real end game is something much, much bigger. It's about building their own forms of self-government. And there's a pretty clear playbook for how they do it. Step one, provide water, right?
fulfill a basic human need that the state isn't. Step 2. This creates what the source calls obligated solidarity. What a great phrase. It means to get water, you have to join the group, you have to participate. Step 3. This newly organized community starts generating its own funds through fees and dues. Step 4. They take that money and invest it directly back into their own neighborhood, paving streets, building parks, putting up streetlights. And finally, Step 5. All of that gives them real political power to challenge mayors and tell the city how to spend its money.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The proof is right there in the city's own budget. Look at this data for Quicololo over about 20 years. Nearly half of all the city's investment went into basic infrastructure like sanitation and roads. Why? Well, it's pretty simple, because that's exactly what the powerful, organized communities built around their water systems were demanding. Their priorities became the city's priorities. And this is the incredible result, the big takeaway here. These groups aren't just influencing City Hall anymore. In a lot of ways, they are replacing it. By funding and building their own urban projects, they create these pockets of autonomy. They're almost like tiny, self-sufficient city-states operating inside the larger city. And honestly, nothing captures this proud, independent mindset better than this quote from a community leader named Ramiro Andrade. He just says, "We don't need the city hall. Everything you see we have done with our water." Wow, that one sentence, it just says it all, doesn't it? The pride, the fierce independence, and the raw power that comes from controlling this one vital resource. So let's zoom out for a second. What does all of this actually mean? The story of Cochabamba and these OLPs isn't just some local drama from Bolivia. It offers us a completely new lens for seeing how so many cities around the world are actually built. Not from the top down by planners, but from the ground up by the people themselves. So let's just quickly break down the key takeaways from all this. First, a lot of cities aren't these single, unified things we imagine. They're fragmented patchworks built from the community level up. Second, and this is huge, control over essential infrastructure like water is political power. It's direct currency. Third, these so-called informal networks aren't just temporary fixes. They are powerful, active agents of urban design. And finally, this whole model of bottom-up urbanism is absolutely crucial if you want to understand how millions of people, especially in the global south, are actively shaping the world around them. All of which leaves us with one last big question to think about. We tend to imagine our cities are built by planners, by politicians, by big developers. But, as the story of Cochabamba proves, sometimes the real power lies with the people who control the essential networks hidden just beneath the surface. So the next time you're walking down your own street, maybe ask yourself who really built this place. The answer might be flowing completely unseen right under your feet.